Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 1800 by my clock. Hopefully you have an iPhone. I won't talk to the Samsungers. You are who you are. But at 1800 hours tonight, we said we were going to start in on a next session of great mentorship and great guidance that we have from our two senior leaders. I don't know if you all received earlier, we had one senior leader that had to drop out only because of a family emergency. So with that, I want to get us started this evening. We have a great session, and I'm going to have our team introduce our two awesome speakers tonight. And they're going to give some great information and be open for questions and answering for whatever you all have for this evening. But before we get started, we like to always open up with a prayer. And so with that, I'd like to ask Captain Mary Tang if you could start us off with a great prayer.
Good evening, everyone. Almighty and everlasting God, we pray that you point us in the right direction as we search in our progress with our future careers. Please align us with your plan, fill us with the values and convictions that equip us with our future. When we feel doubtful or lost in our journey, we pray that you remind us that of your never-ending presence, and that we will never walk alone. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mary. And so as we continue to have people joining us this evening, I just want to welcome everyone. For those of you that are coming back to us, thank you so much for being dedicated and coming in and having an evening of just time to listen and learn, and also gain information that you can pass on to others as you mentor others that are growing up in the military or a civilian while they work in the government workforce. And with that, I also want to thank all of the new people joining us this evening. From what I'm hearing, my sister and a few other people have told me we've got some from different services joining us tonight, and they're probably still signing in. Luckily, everybody has the opportunity to register and join in with us and have a great evening. And so we thank you so much. On behalf of Major General Mark Simmerly, we always appreciate you all coming in and having an opportunity to sit and dialogue with us. And I've seen tonight we have a specialist on the line all the way up to a Major General. So thank you all for joining us, and this should feed the soul of everyone. And so with that, we're going to go on and get started. I'm going to have two of our awesome ladies on the executive board of FMMP introduce our guest speakers this evening so that they can share with you the awesome biographies and some of the great work that they've done. And then we're going to have them talk to us about some of the things they want to bring to us and the message. So with that, I'm going to start out with Major Mari Lee. She's going to introduce our first guest.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Major Lee, and I am currently here to introduce you to Colonel Eric Jackson. Colonel Jackson serves as the Force Sustainment Division in HRC Officers Personnel Management Directorate, where he actually oversees over 17,000 logistic officers and warrant officers to include acquisition and contracting, adjutant general officers, in financial management and comptroller officers. So that's quite a big task, and we are very grateful that Colonel Jackson has agreed to come and tell us the key to success. Sir.
Well, and we're going to go on and go right in. Hey, Colonel Jackson, give me a second. I'm going to let Captain Shalonda Estelle introduce our other guests, and then we're going to flow right into the discussion. So Shalonda, if you can go on and introduce Chief.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Captain CJ Estelle here. So here to talk to you about CW5 Penny S. Timmerman. So she is our Force Sustainment Division Management for the Directorate of the Warrant Officer Corps. She entered into the Corps in 2001, and she entered into the Army in 1992. So she is responsible for the oversight and career management of all of our professional development as it pertains to the 3,200 active component warrant officers, those being AG, Ordnance, Transportation, and Quartermaster. So she previously served as the military deputy for the Munitions and the Logistics Readiness Center, and that was at Rock Island Arsenal. So Chief is a native of Iowa, and she holds a Bachelor of Business Administration and Economics from the University of Iowa. So without further ado, Colonel Jackson, take us away, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. First of all, I want to give a huge thank you to Major General Simmerly, the Commanding General of CASCOM, Colonel Pritchard Brown, the founder of this great female mentoring and morale program, and a host of my mentees who are on this line, including the two ladies who just introduced Penny Timmerman, Chief Penny Timmerman, and myself, Maury Lee, as well as CJ Estelle. I've known both of these young ladies since they were second lieutenants. And I poured into their lives, into their careers at that point in time, even up to now. And that's important. And I'm going to come back to that point about us as leaders pouring into folks as second lieutenants. And also want to give a special acknowledgement and recognition. And I don't know if she knows this or not, but she's in the audience. And she was my brigade commander when I was a second lieutenant. And I'm speaking specifically of Major General retired Jeanette K. Edmonds. And General Edmonds from Lifeline at the brigade level, which was a major exercise that we had at the brigade level, to her time as the commanding general at 13th ESC or COSCOM in those days, to moving in other positions. She's just been a tremendous resource and quite frankly, a great beacon to many, males and females. And so, ma'am, thank you for joining us tonight. And it's really great to see you. And one of your old second lieutenants didn't do too bad going up through the years. This evening, I do want to spend some time, both Penny and I, and I'll give Penny a chance to give some opening comments as well here in a second. But I do want to spend some time this evening talking to you guys about the path to career progression. My focus is really going to be from an HRC perspective. And I'm interested really in also hearing from you guys, because quite frankly, the learning really takes place when we have a dialogue, not just us, sitting down and briefing a bunch of slides to you guys. But here are the simple rules to a path to career progression. Simple rules are stay hungry, stay aware of the changes in your environment, be predictive in your environment. As logisticians, we have to be able to anticipate. That's one of the tenets that we hold dear to us. And so being predictive in nature and understanding what's going on is important. Also being honest, and honesty comes in a few different varieties. Honesty with yourself, and that's really understanding what you want out of the Army and what are some of the goals that both align with your own personal needs as well as the Army's career progression needs. It's also being honest with your family. And again, our families are key parts of this journey that we have called a career. And the last piece, or the third piece, is being honest with those who are guiding your career. And those who are guiding your career come in many forms. They come in the form of your mentors. They come in the form of your bosses. They come in the form of your peers. And they also come in the form of the folks at HRC. That's us, the now known as career managers. So I'll pause right there and I'll give my colleague Penny Timmerman a chance to give opening comments, and then I'll take back the net and just kind of go through some thoughts for you guys for a second. Penny?
Well, thank you, sir. So I'll echo the same thank you to everyone, Colonel Pritchard Brown, and of course, CASCOM CG General Simmerly and stuff for hosting this. And to the ladies on here who are working coordinate, I appreciate the introduction, and I certainly am very appreciative to have the invite and the opportunity to have this conversation with everyone out there who's listening and stuff. So I'll keep it kind of short. I won't be as much that, like I said, because I could reiterate and say a lot of the same things Colonel Jackson did, and I don't like to try not to re-say the same stuff. So some things like Colonel Jackson talked about, one of the things he said about being hungry. To me, I always say it's about being passionate and remaining passionate, and especially as a warrant officer, because you're a technical expert. So you're an expert in a specific field, and your job, wherever you're going, you're going to continue to be that expert in that particular field. That's why we're warrant officers, technical and the subject matter experts, and not on the O-grade sides. We become more generalists and stuff and take on bigger and harder things. So I always say it's about passion, and be passionate about what you do, your profession and stuff. And that in itself will come through and naturally help you to progress and be successful. Another thing I always say about, and this is kind of speaking from the assignment perspective, is about being optimistic. So one, be realistic, okay, which doesn't mean being pessimistic. It's also being optimistic. I always try to think of the glass as being half full when I see things. So a lot of times you get the whole assignment and you're like, that assignment to Fort Irwin, NTC, sounds kind of rough, but like I said, I always try to think of the positive side of it and everything you're going to learn. And again, it's always about what you're going to learn and where you're going to grow and where you can improve that assignment and then take yourself to. So from there, I'll turn it back over.
Awesome, great words, and thank you so much, Penny. So I'll share a couple of thoughts with you guys. First, I'll give some observations on what's going out in the field. So since the time that I've been at FSD, there's been a lot of changes that we've had on the forefront with how we manage talent at HRC. Now, let me pause right quick. Again, I work on the OPMD side of the house, not on the EPMD side of the house. And so, my apologies in advance to our non-commissioned officers who are in the audience, as well as our junior enlisted members, as well as some of our civilians. But there are some takeaways and some things that actually do apply to those other groups and populations as well. And if you guys do have questions that apply to your specific demographic, as far as, officer, enlisted, NCO or civilian, just hold those questions. And then when we come back for the Q&A, please bring those up. For the officer side, what I do want to talk about, since I've been here at FSD, one of the things that we've accomplished is we have really had a great opportunity with exploring what we can do in the art of the possible with talent management. And it's not just talent management as far as putting people in certain places. It's really taking a little bit of a different look and slant at talent management. Maybe about 2 weeks ago, I was having a conversation with an exceptionally senior leader in our Army at the 4-star level, exceptional leader at the 4-star level. And one of the questions that this senior leader asked us was, can you guys tell me who the top 5 females are in the Army? And there was a little bit of a pause as we kind of process that question and process how we would get the answer. What I will tell you is that today we have that ability of being able to at least point in some kind of direction for, who are the top performers. But there are some gaps depending on the grade plate. It's a little bit easier for us to be able to do that with full-bird colonels and lieutenant colonels. It's a lot more challenging for us to do that with lieutenants and in many cases, our junior enlisted soldiers. So here's what I will tell you. For the first time ever, like I said, we have the incoming DTO, the incoming Division Transportation Officer class is, for the first time in history, we've been tracking this, is going to be 50% female. That is the highest ratio of females that we've seen as incoming DTOs since we've been keeping records on this. Now, you may say, why is that important? Here's why that's important. The vast majority of our division transportation officers go on to become battalion commanders. And all roads to becoming a senior leader of the Army, in our Army, go through battalion command, through that central selected list of battalion command. And so when we're identifying up to 50% of this upcoming class, it's going to be 50% female for DTOs, that's telling us that we expect a harvest of some phenomenal leadership across the spectrum, males and females, in the outer years. And how did we get to this point? Well, it really got to this point by programs like this, programs like Sisters in Arms, and other programs out there where we're really trying to pull the thread on what can we do to maximize talent across the Army. Because in the reality of things, talent is like, it's like you're riding in a rowboat. And it's talent and who we're investing in is not at the expense of one group over the other. Because quite frankly, when the whole talent pool rises, the whole level of performance for the entire boat rises. Everyone that's riding in the boat benefits from the talent that is being developed. And so when we look at pathways to career progression, I talked about staying hungry. Now, how do you stay hungry and how do you get fed? Well, if any of you guys are fans of Discovery Channel, you know they have Shark Week, right? And Shark Week, you normally see a great white shark swimming through the waters, and there's a little fish that's attached to the great white shark. And that little fish is called a remora. Some people call it a sucker fish, but that fish sticks to that great white shark. And as that great white shark comes upon a seal in the waters, that great white shark attacks that seal to fill its belly. And in the process of that great white shark ripping that seal apart in the water, little fragments of flesh are in the water. That remora detaches itself from the great white, goes and gets fed some of those morsels that are in the water, reattaches itself to the great white, and the great white shark swims off to the next meal. Now, that is my mental model of mentorship. Young officers, young NCOs attach themselves to senior NCOs and senior officers. And as they navigate and swim through the waters of a career, and they come upon knowledge, indicative here in this analogy of a seal in the water. And as that great white shark is ripping apart that seal, that remora is in the environment to get fed. And that is the beauty about attaching ourselves to senior leaders. I open up by saying that General Edmonds was my brigade commander when I was a second lieutenant in her formation. And you know, there was just a great deal of talent in that formation. So much so that I can name right now a laundry list of lieutenants in that organization who went on to become brigade commanders. I can name a laundry list of field grades in that organization who went on to become multi-star general officers. And again, and that's really set in motion by great leadership in good places, and then finding ways to be able to harvest talent that's there. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, hey, why is there a dude sitting here talking to us at the female mentorship or female mentoring and morale program? This past week, I engaged with, in the past 3 days, I've engaged with 5 of my female mentees. And I told each one of them the exact same thing.
Think he went on mute, DM?
Yes, ma'am. We're trying to fix the matter.
Okay, sounds good.
Colonel Jackson, if you can give us a second, we lost you on audio. Gonna fix it though.
Okay, do you have me back now?
Perfect.
Yes, sir. I think that was you, sir.
Okay, great. So I don't know, hopefully you guys heard my great white shark story.
We heard the great white shark. We were right at where you were talking about you engaged with 5 of your mentees this week.
Okay, great. So this week I engaged with 5 of my mentees, and what I told each one of my mentees, who are all female, by the way, to go out and find someone to mentor who is not like them, meaning someone who is in a different racial, ethnic, diversity category than themselves. Now, why is that important? Why? Because I want to get them out of their comfort zone, because I don't want them to have a group of folks who look exactly like them. And also I want them to have diversity in thought. As they become senior, they can benefit from the diversity of thought that they're getting from their mentees. And when we look at the inverse of that relationship, those mentees who are getting mentored by someone who looks different than them, who is in a different gender category than them, they also now have a power broker status where they are understanding things from a different perspective, and their perspective will go on to reap dividends for generations to come. And that is the beauty of mentorship. If we do it right, and again, we're selective in who we pick, but also we have to get out of our comfort zones for who we pick. And that's so very important. So if you guys have mentees, you know, great. I would challenge you to go and look down the roll and pull up their pictures and look at them. If the pictures all look the same, you're doing something wrong. Find someone else who looks a little bit different, has some different anatomy parts, and that way you can make a difference, as well as you can also learn in the process. So staying hungry. And I like the way that Penny talked about, you know, with it as far as being passionate. And I do like that. But, you know, I'm from Texas and I got a public education from Texas and Louisiana, so you got to forgive me. But here's what I will tell you. Staying hungry means, you know, you're always in the hunt for things that are going to come down the pipeline. And what does that mean? For career progression, you may not know what job you're going to do in the future. You need to start preparing for it today. I have reflections of being when I was a cadet at Prairie View A&M University. The one job I did not want to do as a cadet was to be the cadet battalion S3, because I saw that poor guy struggling. And I was like, man, I got to graduate college. I can't be in here writing orders all day long. And that's too hard, by the way. And that job, I was always intimidated by that job. Later, when I became a second lieutenant, I learned as much as I could. And then I became a first lieutenant and first lieutenant promotable. My battalion commander at that time, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Bruce Harrison, looked at me and he said, Eric, I need for you to be my battalion S3. And I said, sir, okay. My inside voice didn't have that confidence, but my outside voice did. And because my boss was asking me to do something, a job that I had known that I'd always feared. But he paired me up with some phenomenal leadership, my battalion XO, my SPO, and that's what leaders do. Again, leaders pair, they understand what your weaknesses are, and they pair you up with folks who are going to accentuate the positive strengths that you have and be able to make up those gaps, some of the weaknesses that are in your leadership portfolio. But through all of that, I was always constantly observing the people who were doing that S3 job, because that was the one job that I feared. And I knew someday I would have to be on battalion staff. And there was, you know, a 1 in 3 chance that I was going to get that job. And so again, a part of that is staying hungry and preparing yourself. And again, it kind of goes also with staying aware of the changes in the future. One of the changes, speaking of changes, one of the changes that we're doing at HRC is that we're looking at different ways for how we identify talent. Right now, the way that we identify talent in HRC is really through you guys here on the other end of this forum. And that's through you doing self-professed knowledge, skills, and behavior attributes. You're putting those onto your AIM resumes. Now, if you have not filled out your AIM resume, this is a huge footstone. Fill out your AIM resume. Here's another secret of success. If you do not have a current DA photo, take your DA photo. Well, wait a minute, sir. There's a message out there that says DA photos won't be used in promotion boards. Well, yes, you're exactly right. There is a message out there that says DA photos won't be used in promotion boards. But did it say it won't be used elsewhere? No. So here's what I would throw out there for you. As you know, we build slating menus for senior leaders. And when senior leaders come to us and say, hey, you know, I'm looking for a lieutenant colonel to be my XO, and we build a packet. Is it proper for us to have a captain photo in that lieutenant colonel's file? Probably not. And so that's one of the reasons why, again, we're not HRC and the Army does not, I want to emphasize this, we do not use your promotion photos, any of that kind of information through selection boards. But again, there's nothing at all that says you should not be taking a DA photo and keeping your DA photo current and up to date. Best thing, you just get practice for your command photo when you become a command, okay? And also go get it in this great new uniform that our Army now has. And as you look at you saw the flyer that we have out there, you know, I trust me, I'm a colonel and I didn't want to spend the money for it. But again, I knew what I had to do. And there we go right there. You know, we know what we have to do. And again, this goes into that same mode of staying hungry. Staying hungry means you got to look hungry. And that's not going into the office, you know, holding your stomach, growling and sounds, but looking the part. Because if you know, I had one of my officers most recently went to apply for a very nominative job. And he went there prepared with everything. The uniform was duty uniform of the day. Or actually, it wasn't even announced. And so my officer went in and met with the general officer and had a great time. And the next candidate came in. And the next candidate was dressed in the AGSUs and presented if you're familiar with the Brigadier General Dick's professional book, and presented the professional book to the general officer during this interview. Guess who got the job? It's that young lady, by the way, who was in the right uniform, or not the right uniform, but you know, went above and beyond in the uniform, went above and beyond in producing the General Dick's professional book. And if you don't know what the professional book is, hang on afterwards and we can talk to you about that. And I see Colonel Pritchard Brown smiling because she knows what that professional book is and the power of that professional book and what it does to be able to introduce yourselves to others as you change jobs. So let's talk about being predictive. You guys have to be predictive. Here's something, if you have not heard about it, you know, for the Army is going to change, and there's this thing called REARM that is on the horizon. And REARM is going to essentially look at how the Army does large-scale combat operations through restructuring the way that its divisions fight. And that's using penetration divisions. That's using, you know, joint forcible entry divisions. And that's, you know, using divisions that have specialties in the Arctic. And so the Army is looking at rearm as a way to be able to change the way that it fights with large scale combat operations. So if you're a captain today saying, hey, I want to be a battalion commander, 82nd Airborne Division. Well, if you do, there are some things that you have to track on your path to career progression. And what does that pathway mean? And so and let me pause and develop that thought a little bit more for you. A path to career progression, and if you're writing and taking notes, take this note down. A path to career progression starts with the end state in mind, and you work backwards on your path. So if your goal is to be a battalion commander in the 82nd Airborne Division, what that is instructive for is that it tells you that you probably want to be a battalion XO, a SPO, or a division parachute officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. Because where do most of the folks who are battalion commanders, the 82nd Airborne Division, do their KD time as majors? In the 82nd Airborne Division, right? Because you're looking for jump masters, you're looking for folks who understand the division, and that's what we're trying to match when we match up KSBs, knowledge, skills, behaviors. And there's an E, and sometimes you see KSB-E, the E stands for experiences. And if you've had experiences in those kind of units, then there's a chance, it's not absolute, but there's a chance potentially go back there again based on your KSBs and your experience. But so if you're there as a major, so the major probably got to go somewhere in there, go to airborne school, probably somewhere there, before we go there, after go to airborne school, you got to go to jump master school. So there's a progression. If you start with the end in mind, that's the key thing that will get us to success when it comes to understanding what a career is. And I would challenge you, most of us know about a 5-year plan. I would challenge you to do a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan. Quite frankly, when I was a captain, yes, I was a little bit anal as a captain. I did a 20-year plan, and it was a 20-year plan by month, to be honest with you. And the plan is so old. I printed off a copy, and the staple is rusted in the paper. That's how old this thing is. And when I made it, it was on a 3.5-inch disk. So I'm glad that I printed it out and have it in my I Love Me book, volume 2. And so. Not that I love myself, but I just keep getting more and more papers that I put in there because they're good nuggets of wisdom to have. And quite frankly, over half of my I Love Me book is actually information from forums like this, from mentorship forums that I've received over the years. And I've got stuff dating back in this I Love Me book to the 90s over mentorship nuggets and wisdom that's in this book. And when it's my time next to the aircraft, this thing that we call a career, I'll pass those nuggets of wisdom on to that next generation and to my grasshoppers, my mentees. Let's talk about being honest with yourself. Being honest with yourself is just that. If you know that you have a passion to want to do B, but everybody is telling you to go and do A, you have to be honest with yourself to understand where your passion lies, where your talent lies, and where your future lies. And somewhere in the process, whether it's faith that gets you there to get that answer, whether it's, mentors that are providing you with the answer, or whether it's self-reflection that's providing you that answer, you've got to be honest with yourself on what it is that you want as an expectation out of the career. And after you figure that out for yourself, you've got to bring in your family because they're also an equal stakeholder in this. And more importantly, they're actually shareholders because as your stock goes up and down, so does theirs. And the things, there will be perhaps times where you're deployed downrange or you're separated because of tour dependent restrictive tours or what have you, but your family needs to be a consideration in that. And so as you're being honest, it is okay right now. And HRC is kind of changing the way that we look at this. Back in the days, we used to always tell you, hey, go and command on your first look. And you better command on your first look. That's what I grew up hearing all of the time. And our CG right now is really also trying to change, HRCCG is really trying to change that dynamic for us. So that way we're encouraging officers, if there's something going on in your life, a life event, it is okay to say, you know what, I'm going to keep my options open, but I'm not going to compete this year, but I'm going to compete next year. And truth in lending, that's my story. I did not opt in for brigade command on my first look. Because if I would have opted in for brigade command on my first look, my daughter would have gone to 4 high schools in 4 years. And my daughter's on the autism spectrum, and I knew that that would have not been fair to her. So I had an option. I could either go off and do brigade command, or I could say, hey, SOD, hey, mentors, this is not dovetailing well with what I have as expectations for my family. And again, I had to start with being honest with myself. Then I brought my family into that. And the third one is those who are guiding your career. I was honest with my mentors, honest with my career managers to also share with them, not this year, but you absolutely have my commitment for next year. And, next year, the rest has been history. God bless me to be able to get selected for a great brigade, and the rest has been history. And so those are just some thoughts out there, again, with being honest. Last thing I'll leave with you on this point, and then I'll pause and turn the net over to Tammy, and then we can come back around to some questions at the end, is I was always taught to, hey, man, if you're talking HRC, you need to be wary. They got a tape recorder out there. They're recording your voice. They got a camera in your office. Okay, listen, this is my second time at HRC. I was a branch chief several years ago after battalion command, and now I'm back as a division chief. And here's what I would tell you. The culture for HRC has changed since I first joined the Army. And what I would share with you is to be open, honest, and transparent with your career managers. And even the name of the people who you call in HRC, that has changed. When Colonel Pritchard Brown and I joined the Army, those people were called assignment officers. And they are now career managers. When you think about the name, an assignment officer really just manages you for the assignment that you're in and the next one that you're going to go to. And HRC is really trying to push away from that and look at the holistic piece of how do we manage talent over the course of an officer's career, hence the name career managers. And one of the mandates that I've given to my team is not just, and I've got, everyone from second lieutenants up to lieutenant colonels, former battalion commanders, but I am looking beyond the bandwidth that I have. I am putting a charge on all of my branches to make sure that for on the officer side is to make sure that we're doing the things to make brigade command ready colonels. Because when somebody pins colonel, if they're not joint qualified, if they don't have these requisite skill sets, that probably means that they're not going to go into the brigade command where they're probably best tailored to fit. And so that fit takes place on my watch and my team's watch. And so we're really looking at the course of an entire officer's career to really want to shape that into what it needs to be. So that way on the outside, again, starting with the end in mind and working our way back, starting with the end in mind of how do I get this young officer where she can be a brigade commander, just like my first brigade commander, Major General Edmonds. How can we get her to be just like that? And again, that starts with involvement of the officer, involvement with those folks in that officer's environment, and also that includes HRC. So again, it's okay for you to be able to tell and have those open conversations with HRC. And when you're not on the phone or on email with HRC, how can you best have a conversation with HRC? It's your AIM resume. In the coming, about a month and a half, my career managers are going to start talking to the field about a thing called the Army Talent Attribute Framework. I'll say that again, Army Talent Attribute Framework. And it's a pinwheel chart that has a number of KSBs on it. What we need for you guys to do is once you look at that Army Talent Attribute Framework, start looking at that and understanding what knowledge, skills, behaviors, and experiences do you have that are on that chart. And those are the keywords, the buzzwords that you need to put inside of your AIM resume. Because when career managers are looking for people to fill certain jobs, that's going to be in the future, especially when IPSE comes online. That's going to be one of the key tools that we use to help us manage talent, not manage assignments, but manage talent. And we're trying to put, again, the most talented folks into the jobs that can accentuate their talents. So with that, I'll go ahead and pause. And I'll turn the net back over to you, Colonel Pritchard Brown, or either pass it over to Tim.
So
Penny.
before we go on over to Chief, I just want to say thank you so much. And I will say this, I know you said it earlier and you apologize for it being more officer centric, but I would say everything you said, you can take a rank off of it. It applies to everybody that's sitting on here. So everything you said resonates because your message across the board is to focus on the future and by understanding your end state and then looking at it. And that crosses officer, enlisted, and warrant. So I really appreciate you saying that. Hopefully everybody was taking copious notes like me, because I take notes. People look at me, well, why are you taking notes? You're a colonel. I'm taking notes because my mentees are going to hear this very story. The very things that he's saying, and that's why we also record it too, just so we can have those tidbits and nuggets of information. But if we don't pass this information on, then we're missing an opportunity to train our next generation, as you all said. So thank you so much. You're awesome. And yes, Jeanette Edmonds is my shero. I already put it in the chat room, but wonderful person that I looked at her and I saw what I could be. And so just like the generations before us, we have to see what we can be to know we can attain it. So thank you so much. All right, Chief, you ready? Drink a bit of water. You ready to go? It's on you, Chief.
Yes.
Take it away.
So, as I said, I don't have a lot more to add. Colonel Jackson, as he said, it applies to everyone. And I think everyone out there listening. In fact, I'll probably just reiterate a few of the points he said, because there's some of this, a lot of what he said are some of the exact same conversations I have when I give briefings to warrant officers, whether that's an advanced class, a senior sustainment warrant officer forum, or whatever. So it's a lot of the exact same points and everything. From a warrant officer's perspective, one of the things I will say that maybe diverges just a little bit, again, like I said, I talk about we're the technical expert, subject matter expert, and we build that expertise by new experiences, but basically still doing our same job. So for me, I'm an ammunition tech by trade. That's my field. So all my assignments obviously have been in the ammunition field. So, and they're always going to be, well, with the exception of this one, but I've become, so I certainly didn't walk into the job an expert as a W1, even though you get to that new unit, they like to think you are, but it's like, wait, I was just a staff sergeant a few months ago. So, but you grow from each one of those next assignments you have. And when I say you grow, it's not so much, because sometimes people get wrapped around, and I have these conversations with young warrant officers where they think growth and progression is by immediately moving to that next rank. So I get a lot of young, eager W2s who think if they get that W4 assignment in the TSC, that's going to be awesome. That's going to help them grow. And it's like, well, you've kind of missed a few steps in there, and you've missed out on some experience that you're not going to have that you need in that assignment at the TSC. So, growth isn't always about moving up and moving into the higher assignment. It's about just moving to a different assignment. And, again, I'll speak from an ammunition tech, but from any warrant officer, you may go from one BCT to another BCT, but you still get a different experience, because as much as we have doctrine and regulation that lays out, basically the fundamentals of how we operate, every unit operates differently, and you learn from those benefits. And then you grow even more by going to the different AOs, how things operate in the Pacific, very different from how they function and operate in Europe, and how they interact with their commands and stuff. So every one of those is as I say, so you want to look for the different experiences. And as I say, always be optimistic about where you're going, because no matter where you end up, you are definitely going to learn something, if you go in there with that good attitude. And as I said, maintain that passion to learn, and you're going to learn, and you're going to learn from those around you. So those are some things. I'll hit upon, like Colonel Jackson, he mentioned AIM resume and the DA photo. I have had multiple conversations, and I always stress these at every briefing I have. Do your AIM resume. Absolutely. And the things you write on your resume, it doesn't need to be wordy. It doesn't need to be flowery. Hit the points, because people are going to read it, and highlight the things you want for that next job that you're trying to get. Highlight your skills, your knowledge, and your experience that you have that drives you into that next job. Those are a few of the points I'll point out when people do the resume. But like I said, do the resume. I don't know how many times in the conversations I have, if the officer doesn't have a resume done, the unit's usually moving on. They may give it a quick glance, but it's like, yeah, I've got, 5 other people I can look at who did take the time to fill out a resume, and those are what I'm going to read, and those are the people I want to interview and talk to. So the resume makes a difference. The DA photo, likewise, you're right. DA photos are no longer used on boards and this and that. However, and actually I'd say it was a short while ago, but the XLR came out towards the end of last year. DA photo is still requirement. It is still in regulation to have a DA photo. So I always say it out there to the warrant officers, hey, all of us have our uniform basically together anyway, because we're not wearing it. So get online, make the appointment, and take the hour to put it on and go get the photo. You know, it's really not too bad, but because they're still looking for things. As I said, it's a requirement to have. It's just a little check mark that, hey, you're keeping up and you care and it's about your professional appearance. So I hit that one too. You know, you talked about what is your end state in mind. Colonel Jackson mentioned that. That's the same way. I think, and everything we do, and I don't know if it's something we learned in the Army, because I don't know if I had it before. We always backwards plan, right, when we do things. Okay, so I've got whatever, this event going on, but I always backwards plan to do whatever. We've got this training event. So now we start backwards planning and how are we going to get to that thing? It's no different with your career, right? You want to start looking at, where do I think I'm going to be, you know, in the next 5 years, or where do I think I want to be towards the end of my career? You know, it's a loose plan, because that's another thing. I always tell people, sometimes people get very tied to that plan. And then, as we know in the Army, 9 times out of 10, that plan isn't going to go exactly right. And if you're too tied to it, that could throw a wrench and put some people into a tailspin. But, you know, having a loose plan helps you get there, and then being flexible with how that plan might change or might go down a different path. So then, hey, we just adjust course, don't we? It's like any plan we write in the Army, right? It's a great plan when we put it on the shelf. The minute the bullets start flying, that plan changes completely. So, and we adapt and overcome in the Army. That's what we're great at. So those are just a few of the things. I'll hit upon mentors. He talked about having mentors that are different from you. And I 100% agree completely. Absolutely. And not just, and I say mentors, that's plural. It's a big thing. And it's a comment I'd gotten also out of General Daly. He even talked about it once. You want to have multiple mentors. You know, a lot of people sometimes just have that one mentor that they always talk to. But it's very important to have multiple mentors, because people have different perspectives. And again, they have different experiences. So you can go to one to get some advice, but then you might want to bounce that off of another one. You know, it's no different than, you could take it to the extreme with a doctor situation. And if you get, you know, something, you get a second opinion sometimes. So this way you have multiple mentors is very important, especially in the warrant officer field. Actually, I shouldn't say especially in the warrant officer field, but as warrant officers, we always stress about mentorship, having mentors, and then also mentoring, you know, as we bring people along. So with that, I'll also give a little plug. If we have enlisted out there, be thinking about that warrant officer time. We always want good soldiers to become warrant officers, and always need warrant officers. So, hey, any of you have an inkling, even if you're young in your career, it's even better. So you backwards plan, right? And be like, hey, well, I know when I make E6, I want to put in and become the warrant officer. So how do I start doing that now while I'm at E4 and stuff to build that career and get there? And, you know, find those mentors who are going to help and get you there. I'm always willing to talk to anyone about wanting to become a warrant officer. And I'm also always willing to mentor anybody. I mean, I don't just mentor ammunition techs, you know, I mentor various people. So I'm always available for that. And I think, yeah, from there, I guess I'll turn it over probably for questions and stuff, because I don't want to just keep harping on a lot of the same things. So, all right, ma'am.
Well, thank you, because you gave some great perspectives from your point of view. And just like Colonel Davis said earlier, giving different perspectives, different mentors, and having a variety of people that can give you different insights, because each mentor brings to the table something different that they've been through in their life. And just having them to be able to be a sounding board is perfect. And I'm so glad you brought up the warrant officer. You know, if they're the enlisted are thinking about becoming warrant officers, then all they have to do is research it. You know, we're in the days now of Google. You can Google and ask Siri about everything, or Alexa. And so I think through what you say, and just as Colonel Davis was saying, look at the other avenues, researching, learning, and understanding what you want to do. Green to gold. If an enlisted soldier wants to be an officer, if an enlisted soldier wants to be a warrant officer, or if an enlisted soldier wants to be a sergeant major, guess what you have to do? Research it, figure out exactly what you all were saying. And so really appreciate that. I do want to hone in on 2 things that both of you said that I think hopefully will spark some of the questions that are going on in here. But your knowledge and skills and the KSBs, the knowledge and skills that we have can never be taken away from us. As we all know, education is what feeds us, and no one can take your education away. But if you don't have that education or that knowledge, you don't have a frame of reference. And so by hearing what you all are saying from the HRC point of view, that allows everyone that's listening in to be able to say, okay, now I know I can go ask these questions. And he's absolutely right. Assignments officer, all we thought of was them just telling us where we were going to the next assignment. A career manager even sounds like somebody cares more about me than anything else. And so I really appreciate you all saying that. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up to some questions and answers. And that way we'll get this dialogue going. Please feel free to raise your hand. Please feel free to ask or even interject and add some of your own comments. I think we said her name enough times tonight. So maybe if Major General Jeanette Edmonds wants to jump in there and grab some of this time to talk to us, because you mentioned and fed our souls. So we would love to hear from you as well, ma'am. But please, we have one question I see from Emmanuel Butts. So I'm going to go on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Mari Lee and Shalonda Estelle, as well as Sierra Cooper Thomas, are going to be able to field our questions as we come in. So we'll start off with Emmanuel Butts.
Hey, ma'am, this Lieutenant Butts. I'm down here in Eglin at EOD school, and it's more of a statement and a question. So to the Colonel and the Chief, I thought these are great points. And Captain Hogberg, he's our commander down here, and I just feel like he does he's been harping on the AIM resume. And, sometimes you can think, well, maybe this is just something I need to do and it's not that important, but it was good to hear the confirmation that this is, something we need to do, and we were doing it for a reason. So that was awesome. And I also wanted to know, sir, what type of tools do you use to plan for that type of long-term planning? Are there any tools, or is it just like pen on paper type of thing? And I just wanted to know that. Thanks.
Hey, Emmanuel, thank you for your question, and thank you for one having the greatness to come and sit in this forum and learn. That means a lot. Again, you heard my comment a little bit earlier about why am I here as a dude. I think it's great to have dudes here because, quite frankly, that's the way we operate as an Army. And so again, thank you as a young lieutenant, finding time, carve out of your schedule to come out and do this. So when I made that long, big master plan from my captain years out to Colonel Brigade Command, I did that on Excel. And but nowadays we have some much better tools. I spoke earlier about the Brigadier General Dick's professional book. That is a tool that's out there, and also on the HRC website. They have 5-year and I want to say they maybe have like 7-year career planners. And you can probably just Google or Siri search for career planner or career tracker, and they have a breakdown. So that way you can, again, start with the end in mind, plan out where you want to go. And a lot of them have multiple courses of action, multiple options. Do you want to go and do a staff job? Do you want a VTIP, later on? You may want to go acquisitions. And away from your basic branch. And so it gives you options that you can plan it out. The other great thing about using a timeline to plan out your career is because most of these timelines, if you don't have them added, but most of the timelines have a line for family. And then that line for family, that's when we have to consider our spouses' occupations, where our kids are in school. Do we want to buy a house or do we not want to buy a house? And those are family decisions that have to be measured, planned out. You don't want to wait until you're retired and you're sitting in your ceremony and figure out, oh, wait a minute, I could have bought a house back then, and I've been living on Fort Bragg for the last 12 years. And so there are things that those tools are out there. Again, HRC website, the simplest form is an Excel spreadsheet. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I was looking for the button, but yes, sir.
Okay.
It answered my question. It's just, yeah, I just needed to, that's a big thing to do. And so I just wanted to know if there was an easy way to do it, or some type of format, but that's great. I'll definitely check it out.
Yes. And again, I want to double foot stomp again on the Dick's professional book. That's got a great resource in there. And it doesn't just give you some timelines. It also there's some tools in the Dick's book that allows you to be able to self-assess your OERs to figure out how do they compare against the standard. And again, that's another benefit of getting your hands onto the Dick's professional book. Great
Yes,
question.
sir. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. Chief, would you like to add anything on from the warrant officer enlisted perspective on what tools that you think they should use? Recommend any of them?
So we don't have any really good solid tools, ma'am. I mean, you've got Army Career Tracker and stuff out there, and then there's Senator, which has basic career progression, but they're not for every MOS. Some of them are more detailed than others. So depending on the field you're in, you might find a lot of great valuable information off your career tracker, and other ones they're not as good as they are. Myself, I am a pencil paper kind of person, and or a whiteboarder. So I like to just kind of sketch things out, or just I'll draw general timelines and calendars and do things that way. So that's kind of me. As far as, and like I said, no set tools. Like I said, you can Google anything these days, or, ask Alexa and stuff. So hopefully she doesn't go off. Anyway, so there's, like I said, there's different ways to find that. As far as a warrant, if you're trying to, it's a common question is people don't know what are always broadening assignments, or they don't actually know where all the assignments are for warrant officers and for their fields. The simplest thing, right? FMS Web. Everybody can go there. You can go to FMS Web. You pull up, it's the POSCO, put in your MOS and do that search, and you can find every job out there in the Army where they are. And then, as far as broadening goes, I always tell everybody, there's various types of broadening assignments, but if you're looking for a truly immaterial type assignment, you're just going to look up 011 Alpha positions and see where those are at to get you an idea. Those are a lot of the common questions I get. So just some of the basics.
Okay. And I'm glad you said that, because just like you said, we can Google anything, but I would submit to the lieutenant and everyone that's on here, ask your mentors, ask people around you, what do they have? The closest people to you that can give you a product are the people that are around you. I already know, and I'm so glad he brought it up, because I do have my own professional book. Guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna dust it off. I'm gonna blow the dust off of it, probably some, and then I'm gonna make sure I give it out to my team. I know I've given products to my company commanders and battalion commanders, but that's one thing that I want to make sure I leave in their hands. So that's the kind of thing you want to ask your mentors, or ask people around you, what do they have and how did they get to where they got? So thank you. I appreciate that. I think we have a question in the chat room, so I'm going to let Sierra, Captain Cooper Thomas, ask that question.
Yes, ma'am. We do have a couple questions in the chat room. The first one is from Jennifer Jagers, I believe. She asked if the AIM resume is available for AGR. Over.
Colonel Davis, Chief, is the AGR, do they have access, and are they able to reach out and have the same resources as us?
Yes, Colonel Jackson here. And so what I throw out there for you is yes, AGRs also have access to building an AIM resume. AIM resumes are actually built into the portal, the online portal. If you have access to the portal, you have access to building an AIM resume. There are also some other tools out there that AGR officers can use. Now, break. One of the things with AGR officers is that they still use an antiquated program that, I'm not making this up, it's like a DOS screen with green letters on a black background to manage assignments. And so a lot of their systems are not tied in right now to the larger what OPMD does. But with IPSA, when IPSA comes online, what we do anticipate is that a number of the old antiquated systems that the AGR and now RCMD, which is a separate part, the reserve component division here at HRC, they'll fall underneath, or at least more in line with some of the traditional tools that you see for the active force. But the short answer is, if you go into the portal on HRC's website, you log in, and there's a place in there where you can click on View ORB, and also it'll allow you to be able to update your AIM resume. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, my searches have not led me anywhere, but I will reach out to my talent manager and do some more due diligence on that. As you know, as an AGR officer, I have a lot of civilian experience that could bring a lot of benefit to the military if they knew that information. And so I'm excited to share that. Over.
Roger. The way HRC split out a few years ago, they actually pushed all the AGR over to the RCMD side of the house. But if you can send an email, I still have one AGR officer who works for me today on my side, and he's actually a career manager. But if you can send an email to Major Eli or Eli Candelaria, and let him know that he'll help you out with getting into the system. That way you can have access to it. Again, he's on the global Candelaria. First name is Eli.
Can you spell the last, sir? I'm sorry. That's a difficult last name. I'm actually.
I know, or better yet, just shoot me an email to, I'm the only Eric Jackson that's a colonel at HRC. I'm at eric.l.jackson74.mil.
That's a good year. Thank you, sir. I appreciate
and I'll
the
get
help.
you over to Ellie. No problem. Hey, while I've got the net, I do want to talk about, we talked about tools earlier when Lieutenant Butch was talking about tools. There are two more tools I want to talk about. One is your cell phone. Use it. So if you have a mentor who's out there, use your cell phone to stay in contact with your mentor. Now, Captain Estelle, CJ, is one of my mentees. Like I said, she's been one of my mentees since she was a lieutenant. CJ knows how to use the phone to stay in contact with me. And I got it. As you get up in rank, you're probably thinking, man, your bosses are so busy, they'll make time. Trust me. Even this past year, one of my mentors who I've had since I was a second lieutenant, he was a 4-star, and I would shoot him emails and when I needed him. But there was one time when I would always shoot an email on my cell phone, from my cell phone. And if you're taking notes, write this one down, because this one is like the easiest one you can do ever. For Christmas, take a photo of your family and attach it in an email and send it to all your mentors and give them an update on where you are and what you've done over the past year, how things are going in your job, and what do you anticipate is next year in the new coming year for you and your family. Don't make it long. Don't write War and Peace here. Don't write about the Peloponnesian Wars. Don't make it that long, but make it short, sweet, and to the point. Attach a picture of you and your family and send that out. Most folks in Christmas time, they've got a half-day schedule, so your bosses will have a great opportunity to be able to catch up on email. And like I said, it's free chicken for you to be able to stay in contact with your mentors. The other tool or tip that I wanted to also share out there for you is, and you can do this on your phone also, set a calendar reminder for you to update your AIM resume. So if I worked, if I was trying to get a job at Popeye's Chicken, right? Because I grew up in Louisiana and Texas, and on my resume I would put, hey, I used to work at Church's Chicken, I used to work at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I used to work at Zaxby's Chicken, and so that's what I'll put on my resume to go get a job at Popeye's. But what I want to put Popeye's Chicken, Church's Chicken, and Kentucky Fried Chicken on my resume if I'm trying to get a job on Wall Street? The answer is probably not. And so as you guys are in the market for new jobs, in the market, get a different job, or if you're just at your local installation getting ready to interview for a job, that's an aide-de-camp job, if that's I want to be a company commander or a Bravo company job, you have the ability to go into your AIM resume and update it at any time you want to. Just keep it updated. Because there's a lot of AIM resumes. As I search them, I look at, because here's what I do when I look at an AIM resume. I go straight to the back after I look at the KSBs and say, okay, who is this guy or gal's mentor and who's coaching them? That's the first section I go to. And when I look at that, that then gives me a frame of reference for what kind of coaching that they're getting. And then I go back and do a second reading of the content inside of the second page of the ORB. And so again, update your resumes, keep them updated. Update your resumes for every new job that you're trying to get to.
That's some excellent advice. And I'm so sorry, Earl, I called you Davis for some odd reason, but Eric, we're here. But you see a word and it sticks in your mind. So thank you. And I'm so glad you said that, because two of the things that you brought up about the emails and staying in contact. Most people think you stay in contact with your mentors only when you're in trouble or you need something. Hey, Lieutenant, oh, there you go. And so that's not the time to call your mentors only when you need help and you're in trouble. Call them to let them know you're thinking about them, or you know, something that they've said to you, you used later on or use somewhere in your footprint. It lets them know you're listening, but it's also letting them know that you're not just calling on them to get you out of trouble or just to give you an answer to a situation. That lets them know that they're really resonating with you. So I really appreciate you all bringing that up. And so I think we have, Sierra, do we have some more questions in the chat room?
Yes, ma'am. We actually have a couple questions. One in the chat room reference, Sir Colonel Jackson, can you please mention the General Dix, I believe you said, the professional book that you spoke about earlier. Could you please restate his name?
Yes, it's General Dix, D-I-X. So Rich Dix, Brigadier General Rich Dix is the person. And again, you're probably not going to find it on like the run-of-the-mill websites. A lot of mentors, senior mentors have them out there. I've got a copy of mine. Unfortunately, it's password protected, and my computer's got re-imaged, so I've got to dig it up on my other one on a separate file. Colonel Pritchard, Brandon, do you have one still?
So like I said, you know what, and I'll pull up, I keep a PST file from every duty station I've been to. I do have them. I will put some out there. I don't have it on here, but what I'll do is I'll email it out later on. And yes, General Dix, Richard Dix is one of the ones that created this. And just like Eric said, or Colonel Jackson said, it is key to keep your resumes updated. But guess where your resume is? It's in that book. So when you want to go into your resume and you really want to tailor your resume to whatever job you're trying to apply for, when we say update, you want to make sure, just like you said, those key words, those buzzwords that lets people know that you have the qualifications. If nothing else, you have that experience. But yes, I will make it a point to pull it out. I always keep my hard copy, and it's probably grown just like you said. It's grown. But definitely I'll put it out there and I will send it out to the rest of the team. Matter of fact, I'll reach out to him also and say, hey, sir, I know you still got it somewhere floating around. Can you pull it out? But I will do that. Yes. Thank you for asking that.
Yes, ma'am. I have a follow-on question. So this was on the chat. Really to the panel, Colonel Jackson, warrant officer, I'm sorry, I don't want to pronounce your name, but so my question is really about self-assessment tools. So we speak about the path to, building your career path and what that looks like. I'm currently a bullet constructor, and last couple of years we implemented Project Athena, and it's a few assessment tools that allow students to really see where their current stats are in particular fields. So my question really is what are some self-assessment tools that you've used in order to really just do some self-reflection or truly understand where you're at any point in time in your career? Over.
Good question. Penny, if you want to get first dibs on this, I'll let you get first dibs and then I'll follow up.
Actually, sir, so I don't really have probably anything specific to give as far as the self-assessment tools. A lot of times, as I said, it's just a matter of looking back over and analyzing some of the jobs you've done. I review OERs. Again, it's about having conversations with mentors and past mentors and past people you've worked for, to just kind of have those open, honest conversations to help you kind of see where you're at and assess. So I don't have any good solid tool or anything that's like out there to use. It's just a matter of, like I said, sometimes, and it's that honest look, take that step back and really, kind of evaluate. And it's usually looking back on things you did several years ago, because you've got some new perspectives and you'll start to be like, yeah, maybe that wasn't or whatever, or maybe, I could have done this better that way, which helps you then grow into where you're going to go next step.
Roger, thank you. My add-on to what Penny laid out is self-assessment tools are meaningless without self-awareness. And what I mean by that is you can have all the self-assessment tools to be able to tell you who you are, what kind of person you are. But if you're not self-aware enough to be able to use that knowledge that you have, it's maybe even counterproductive or ineffective to having it. So what are some tools? One of the tools that I've been using lately to help me with my self-awareness as well as my self-assessment is the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And Penny's smiling because I make it a requirement when I do my initial counseling with my officers. There's two things that you are bringing in to the initial counseling with me. One, you're bringing in a 5-year career timeline that has all the stuff in there, and we're going to talk about it. And that timeline also, the one that I have for them, I have them to list out their strengths and weaknesses. And why I'm not gonna sit down there and be Dr. Phil and put them on the couch, and it may feel like it because sometimes I have them in the office for a couple of hours, but true stories right there. But we're really going through trying to help those leaders be more self-aware. And the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, if you're a lieutenant, if you're probably a civilian or a non-commissioned officer, you probably haven't heard of it, and that's okay. But when you go to ILE, you'll be given an MBTI, and it's a maybe 80 or so questions that tells you what kind of personality type that you are beyond just the introvert and extrovert. It'll tell you if you're intuitive or if you're sensing. It'll tell you if you're thinking or feeling. It'll also tell you if you're judging or perceiving. And there's 16 personality types that exist, and this is psychology here, and understanding who you are, how you communicate with others, how you grow and adapt in your environment. It's a good tool. I use it as a leader, so that way I can better communicate with my team, understand who's on my team from a different and deeper level. And I give it to my team, so that way they know what my type is, so that way they can better communicate with me as a leader. Because all of us got quirks. I was down in San Antonio talking to some medical doctors, a psychologist on a visit down there. And he said, everybody's got a little bit of crazy in them. And so don't think that because, you're a certain type of the 16 personality types that, you've reached the pinnacle of success, because every type has strengths and weaknesses. And when you're self-aware of the strengths and weaknesses of your own individual type, it's exceptional. You can get exceptional results in that. Now, why does that matter from an HRC perspective? It doesn't really. Kind of, sort of. It does matter for how effective you are in an organization. Here is the problem that I have right now with the way that we use the MBTI. Every officer who goes to the resident course there and at Fort Leavenworth for the Army takes the MBTI. You spend about 10 minutes in the class talking about it. You close the book and you forget about it. You don't talk about it ever again. And we have not spent time to help leaders become more self-aware of who they are, how they communicate, and how they can improve upon their communication skills. And quite frankly, if we really leverage the MBTI out of Leavenworth, we can actually perhaps look at increasing the success rate out of BCAP, because we have leaders who are more self-aware. Just my thoughts. Again, that's not HRC's thoughts. That's just Eric Jackson's thoughts.
Well, and before we go to the next question, I wanted to bring that up. You brought up BCAP, and that's the first thing I was thinking, because you and I understand what the process is, and I've actually sat on a BCAP board, Battalion Commanders Assessment Board, and an SMAP, Sergeant Major's Assessment Board. And by the time you get to that level of leadership, the skills that we're being judged, or that we're evaluating those people on, have already been formulated. You're already who you are going to be for the rest of your life by the time you make lieutenant colonel or master sergeant, sergeant major. Of course, you can learn and adapt to your behaviors, but you're almost who you are. And so, I'm glad he brought that up, because some of the concerns and some of the questions that we were asking, and I'll ask this as an HRC question, the consideration of the things that we're identifying, that we're, the rubric we use in the boards, if we're bringing them to the younger generations or the younger NCOs and officers and warrant officers, and showing them at that time and helping them to develop them at that time, if we're starting them early, then by the time they get to an SMAP, or BCAP or CCAP, they've already learned the traits that they needed to already work on. So that by the time they get to us, you won't have those counterproductive behaviors in relationships or ineffective behaviors happening at that level, because the self-awareness is key. If you don't know what you're doing or how you're affecting an environment, of course, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread if you believe that that's where you are. So you're not self-aware. If you don't see any flaws or weaknesses, then what are we doing? So I'm so glad you brought that up. And that's where I wanted to ask, has there been any discussion of, I know it's what, all of 2 or 3 years old now, the BCAP and CCAP. I know it's still young and it's in its infancy stages, but if there's an opportunity to bring those discussions up of when can we start using those same tools that we identify on those boards, if we can bring them to the younger generations and start working on them then, making a deliberate effort of working on them then, what would the Army, how would we be able to continue to capitalize on our talent? So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, the answer is kind of paired in with the earlier question with Project Athena, because some of those things are nested in Project Athena, as far as, creating that environment where leaders are learning some of these skill sets at an earlier age. That way, as you indicate, when they do get to the point to where they're senior non-commissioned officers, or they're getting ready to go into battalion command, or at least at a BCAP look, or at an ALAP look, or any one of the other CAP programs based on MOS and grade, they can be successful. What I would also argue along with that is that we don't have to wait for the Army to turn the corner on this. And I'm speaking now to mentors who are out there. Mentors have the ability today to be able to go and look on the website for the CAP programs. It tells you every single thing that you do in CAP. Whether that CAP is a BCAP, it's an SMAP, it's an ALAP, you get a complete briefing on everything that's in there. And likewise, as a panel member for previous CAP panels, I can tell you that what is on the website is open and transparent. That's exactly what happens. And so if we can start to train those things, that's helpful. Self-awareness is helpful. Now, why am I talking about self-awareness, preaching on that? One of the things that, again, has been an observation is that the surveys, the ASET surveys that are anonymous by nature, can trip folks up if they're not careful. Because if there are enough folks in this anonymous survey that says, hey, man, Jackson was not very good to me. He was rude. He was inconsiderate. Matter of fact, he didn't even let me go to lunch most of the days. I had to work to 10 o'clock at night. And if there are about 4 or 5 surveys that say that or have those kind of indicators, the panel, that CAP panel, is going to pull the thread on that. And that is going to come out. And before you know it, even though this person may have received stellar OERs, because we got to think about something. And let me pause and take you down a road right quick. An OER is not written for the officer. Write that down. The OER is not written for the officer. I'm sorry, it's just not. If you think that OER is written for you, wrong. Think Steve Harvey, X popping up on the screen right here. It's not for you, okay? What is written for you? Well, there's one little portion on the 638, the 4 paragraphs, and that's in the 638, the award form, that's for you. So when you read those 4 paragraphs, that's for you. Because even that citation at the bottom, that ain't for you either. That's for the assembled audience. So you only get a portion of the 638. If you want to know what you did and pat yourself on the back, read those 4 paragraphs on your PCS award, that narrative portion. The OER is written for one purpose and one purpose only. That's for a board to make decisions about your promotion ability. That's it. Your ability to get promoted is what that OER is written for. And a lot of times, a rater and a senior rater will write an OER based on how effective that leader is in getting output, and may not necessarily be concerned with outcomes. So what's output? Output means that, hey, I'm the battalion XO. We're working hard every night, 2,300 every night. Lights are on in the 3 shop because that's how we roll, baby. But what are you doing to your force? What are you doing to your team by doing that? Yes, you may be getting good output, staff products, but what kind of outcomes are you having? Well, your lower enlisted members, they're, mess hall is closed, so they're not eating. They're coming out of pocket for food. Your NCOs are not very happy right now because, that extra job they had on the side, they can't do that now because, you're not taking time away from them. Oh, by the way, the newlywed, you just made him miss his first anniversary, so he's not happy. And now, before you know it, again, you're getting good results as far as output, but your outcomes are horrendous. Right now, the way the system works is that person who's that Iron Major is getting the high five, awesome report card for the board because of the results. That's why I think that the caps are so important and so valuable, because the caps allow us to really match up outputs and outcomes. And the CAP program, again, be it, an SMAT, be it an ALAP, be it a BCAP, be it a CCAP, the CAP programs allow us to be able to get a holistic look at a leader to be able to assess whether or not that leader is going to be a good commander. And if you just ask yourself, how do battalion commanders come into being? And battalion commanders are very special because battalion commander has a secret power that not even Chief of Staff of the Army has. And that's the ability of touching folks at a different level through a sustained level of contact. And a company commander has a secret power that the Chief of Staff of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, and not even the battalion commander has. And that's the ability of seeing someone every single day in their formation. As a brigade commander, I promise you, I did not pull my entire brigade together and say, I need to see every one of your faces every day. Couldn't happen. But a company commander has that ability. So if you're a company grade officer, leverage your superpower for good. And so going back on this, the OER piece and going back to, again, taking a look at the OER for what it is. It is written for promotion board. Like I said, majors, our majors get paid to be able to make and get results. CAP blends outputs and outcomes. Break. Battalion commanders are selected because they were good staff officers, period. What are the important report cards that determine who's going to make battalion command? Battalion XO, Battalion S3, SPO, Brigade 4, XO. Those are staff jobs. And it's good and easy, quite frankly, as a staff officer to be able to work till the sun comes up. Been there, done that. But it's not effective in the long term. You break organizations and you break people. And so those folks who do a great job, some of them good performers, great performers, those folks are the ones when we have, toxic environments at the battalion level, that's why we see that. CAP is that stopgap measure to help us break those bonds and help us to be able to see ourselves better, help us to be self-aware and make sure that we're putting the right leaders into the right positions. And I'll go ahead and pause right there.
That was powerful, Eric. I mean, absolutely. I wrote it all down, even though I know that because we've been through it ourselves and we've had those leaders that have had us in there all night long. And what did it do? So, and when we became the leaders, it's what are we doing to pass on what we know needs to be fixed? So thank you so much, Eric. That was awesome, Colonel Jackson. Okay, so I think we had 2 more questions here. Do we have some more questions? Because we're coming up on 19:20. We're going to open it up a little bit more and then we're going to have some dialogue. I'm honored to say we have Major General Simmerly on the line. So of course I'm going to put him on the spot. Amen. But let's get to the last 2 questions. Sierra, do we have any more questions?
Ma'am, right now is just a lot of great feedback from the last few comments from the guest speakers. Currently, there are no questions in the chat room.
Okay, does anyone want to take a minute to raise your hand if you have any thoughts or not necessarily a question, but an opinion or something to add? And if not, of course, I'm about to put 2 people on the spot. General Edmonds, get ready because I'm coming to you next. Shh, don't tell anybody. All right, well, that was our pregnant pause. So now, Major General Edmonds, I call you Major General retired, but So near and dear to my heart, because I just saw her not too long ago, a few weeks ago. And so she's always one of my sheroes. Ma'am, would you like to add some thoughts or comments to what you've heard tonight and just be proud of the person that was saying them tonight, Colonel Jackson, because she helped mentor and me?
Well, I think you had a lot of great feedback from all of your speakers and the questions today. You know, the world has changed quite a bit since I saw Colonel Jackson last, and the tools and the processes are different. I know that Penny said she was a paper person. I was a paper person as an assignments manager, and every person I sat down with, I had a timeline. I had the Army's notional timeline of, you know, a 20-year career, and I would talk to an officer about what they wanted to do, and I would show them how that fit or might not fit on their timeline to get to a successful career. So I think understanding your goals and your objectives and being realistic about how they fit in your family timeline and your career timeline is a very important, whether you use an automated tool or an automated book or whatever you use, you just need to have a good perspective on what that timeline looks like. I really like the comments about being passionate and being hungry. You know, it's always best foot forward. If you really want to get someplace, you have to put your best foot forward all the time. And that means you get your picture taken. Your picture is your handshake with the person who's looking at that file. And that's your first impression. And you should put your best foot forward when you get your picture taken. Whether or not it's going to be used for a board is no longer relevant. It's still going to be seen. And it's also personal pride. You know, why wouldn't you have your picture taken? Why wouldn't you want your best self in your photograph? So I think you've had great dialogue tonight, great questions. I think every person, regardless of whether they're officer, enlisted, reserve, AGR, can benefit from a lot of this discussion and the ability to just ask questions. You know, there's no stupid questions in a forum like this. I mean, it should be about what the people attending want to talk about. So I think I have always applauded you for this. It's great. And I think, you know, keep it up.
Thanks so much, ma'am. As always, I'm always honored to be in your presence, and I get to see you next time in a few weeks, hopefully when we're doing something else with Army Women's Foundation. So
Well, I'm
thanks
coming to
again.
the Ordnance Hall of Fame next week, I think. So maybe
Yes!
I'll see you then.
I'll roll out the red carpet, ma'am. Ordnance red, oh, by the way, although I'm a transporter, we won't talk about it. So Eric, you want to say anything to her?
No, ma'am, I just want to tell you thank you. You have blessed me more than I think that you will ever know. From the days of seeing you, ma'am, roll in the Lexus coupe, to you were the first officer who I received the coin from when I was the captain of the junior officer team. We won a junior officer competition, and we were at 544th. And ma'am, you have always been instrumental. I've bragged about you in forums throughout the last 25 plus years. And I just want to tell you thank you. And I want you to know, ma'am, that the legacy that you put into us and to me as a young lieutenant, that legacy still lives today. And that's because of your leadership. And for that, thank you, ma'am.
Oh, shucks, thank you.
Well, and you know what, and Eric, that's actually what this is about. The work that she did and the energy that she put in any of the mentors that are out here that they put into the juniors coming up behind them, it resonates years later. And for him to be able to say what he said to you, ma'am, and me to be able to know I get to say it to you whenever I see you, and I always grab an extra hug. It lets you know that there's an impact, whether or not you have 10 or 15 people behind you, that one person that you know you've impacted their life, for them to just be able to come back and say, you did something that caused me to be great in my own light is just powerful. And so, yes, ma'am, I can't I can echo everything that he said. And also with General Simmerly on the line, and I wish my other bosses were on here, but I know they're out taking care of some great stuff. So trust me, they're working hard. But I'm going to open it up to Major General Simmerly, because without him, we wouldn't still have this program going and being strong and having the support of senior leaders, because pouring back into our lives allows us to pour in other people's lives. So sir, would you mind doing us the honor of closing us out this evening and giving us some final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much, Claudia, and really appreciate this session. I found it really inspirational and powerful and some great information. I want to thank Colonel Jackson and Chief Timmerman for taking their time out and sharing their knowledge and wisdom. And Eric, I got to tell you, I think that whale shark analogy is going to be stuck with me for a long time. A great image, and it made a great point about opportunities that we can gain from being around those of us who've had greater experience and greater time in the service to learn about the ingredients of success. So I really appreciate the way you framed that, and Chief, your practical advice as well on management and the discussion about knowledge, skills, and behaviors. One thing I would add to it that I know that our marketplace accounts for and our talent management accounts for more than ever before, and that's preferences. And we want to account for preferences because we know they matter to families, we know they matter to retention, and they know they matter to the development of talent overall. So Claudia, thanks for you and your team for these every month. I find them inspirational, and I think we all can learn every day from discussions about mentorship. And so thanks for the great perspectives presented tonight. Over.
Thank you so much, sir. And with that, thank you all for joining us again. Next month will be around the same time, May 26th. I will just put out this public announcement, save the date. My change of command is on the morning of May 26th. Woo! I'm sorry, I had a moment. But I will be changing out of command. Not that I'm changing out and leaving the FMMP. I'm just relocating my computer and my camera. But I will be, by the grace of God, I am moving down to Huntsville, Alabama. And I have been blessed with an awesome position that I think has only because I've had such great mentors that have been here in my life. And so I say me, but guess what? Everyone that is on this screen that has been a part of mentorship has been influenced by mentors before them, as you just heard earlier. And so General Simmerly, General Edmonds, and anyone else on here, hopefully I've not missed anybody. I've tried to scroll through, but thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the work that you do, the mentorship you do, and please pass on the passion. Passion cannot be taught. It has to be grown. It has to be developed in you. And that passion is normally something that you'll do for free. I have a passion for the military, and clearly these people on here that wanted to talk and share with you do too. And so thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay blessed, and stay hydrated. And I will yell go Ordnance, but and everybody on here is not Ordnance. So I'll see you all on the next meeting.
Go Ordnance.
Go Ordnance.
I'll say it, go Ordnance, ma'am.
Go Ordnance. Although I'm a transporter, so go
Go TC.
Go TC too. I'm both. I
AG all the way.
AG all the way
Go
too.
AG. Go AG.
Chief
Ordnance
Dixon
is the best
Carter,
branch.
my Charlie's Angel sister out there, Chief Dixon Carter. Thank you so much for joining us. You're so awesome, and you're right up there when decisions are being made in the Army. So we know what fight you're putting in there, and thank you so much for being here with us. We know you're busy, but thank you. We love you to death.
My
And my twin
pleasure.
sisters on here too, so look alike. Jump on the screen so we'll confuse everybody. I love doing that. Delia, you out there?
I'm out here. Hey, guys, it's a pleasure. Amazing evening, amazing session. So a great session. I appreciate all of you, definitely.
That's right.
Pentagon
Go
says hello.
logistics. Take care all. Have a great night.
Take care. Be blessed.